Councillor, staff and members of the public, if you have your cell phones on, can you please turn them off or not silent? Health and safety, the emergency exits for the supper room at the door at the front, or there. If we need to evacuate the building, please exit and assemble outside on the playground, and please remain at the assembly area until the building has been confirmed clear. Affirmation. Pam, will you be able to read the affirmation for us?
We pledge that we will faithfully and impartially use our skill, wisdom and judgment throughout discussions and deliberations ahead of us today in order to make responsible and appropriate decisions for the benefit of the South Wairarapa district at large. We commit individually and as a council to the principles of integrity and respect, and to upholding the vision and values we have adopted in our long-term plan strategic document in order to energise, unify and enrich our district.
Thank you very much, Pam. Apologies. I've received apologies from Councillor Vickery, Councillor Maynard and Councillor Fox. Are there any other apologies? I then move to accept those apologies. Do we have a seconder? Thank you very much, Brenda West. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, the motion is carried. Conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest? Acknowledgements or tributes?
I'd just like to take this opportunity to actually acknowledge all the work that Alan Maxwell has actually done for our community. He's done quite a bit, particularly in the Featherston area with our youth and as a district in the whole. And I just would like to actually acknowledge his efforts. He really, I don't know whether we've actually seen him, thanking him for his services to our communities in our district. But I just think that it should be acknowledged.
Yep, I did attend his farewell in Featherston and said a few words. So we did acknowledge that publicly on behalf of the council. By all means, if you want to send a card or anything like that, I presented with a gift from the Featherston Zone Charitable Trust as well. Public participation. We have no public participation today and no items of extraordinary business A6. So moving straight on to B1, the adoption of the annual report 2019-20. We have got John Whittle from Audit New Zealand with us via Zoom to go through the Audit New Zealand opinion and answer any questions we have on the opinion of the audit, on the opinion of the audit. Mr. Wilson and Mrs. Neves will be available to answer the questions on the annual report as well. So before I open the floor to Audit New Zealand, can I have a mover to receive the report? Thank you very much. A seconder? Councillor Hay. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Yeah. All those against? The motion is carried. Over to you, John. During John's having a bit quiet, because I know that the microphone when you're on Zoom can be quite temperamental. So John,
are you able to hear me all right?
Yes.
Now?
Yep.
So thank you. We've completed our work for the current year to be able to issue an opinion today. Our opinion for the current year, as usual, it covers both the audited information, which is your statement of service performance and the financial statements, as well as the disclosure information. So for the current year, we have had an issue on this service reporting side, and these come from measures that we have selected as material, and that Wellington Water is responsible for the reporting of the results on these to the council. So there's been a number of issues over the Three Waters response measures, as well as the dry weather overflows. So for these measures, for the current year, we're going to include a modification in the audit report. So I guess there's no additional assurance after all the work that's been done on the Wellington Water side. There's no additional audit procedures that can be done to get assurance that the the fault responses are accurate and complete, and as well as the same issues with the dry weather overflows on the methodology used for reporting against these. So within the opinion, you'll see that there's a modification over the statement of service performance, and that's got to do with those measures I've mentioned. So all the measures are fairly stated except for the 3 water fault responses and the dry weather overflows. And then the other audited information is the financial statements of the council. So for the financial statements, we'll be issuing an unmodified opinion. So that means that we were satisfied after the completion of our work that the financial statements fairly presented position of the council, as well as on the disclosure requirements. Our work, we were satisfied that the disclosure requirements have been met and all the requirements have been reported against. In addition to the modification on the opinion, it's a standard inclusion across all Auditor General's reports this year is for an emphasis of matter paragraph to highlight the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on audits. So management has completed an assessment of the impact of COVID on both the statement of service performance as well as the financial statements. They've included disclosure around these impacts, and our opinion highlights where readers of the annual report can find these disclosures. So like I say, that's a standard emphasis of matter across all reports for the current year. So substantially, that's our report for the current year. If there's any questions on anything there.
Councillors, do you have any questions for New Zealand?
No, I'm fine.
I have one, John, that I've read your opinion on the Wellington Water measures, and I know that there's a difference of opinion between yourselves and Wellington Water with regards to the ability to quantify. Are you taking a fair, accommodating view of a difference of opinion on creating measures, or are you sticking to a line? Because this affects us as a council, not this year, but also next year. Why are you taking quite a staunch stance on the measures and the consideration of Wellington Water's opinion?
So could I, maybe if I could help a little bit on that. Remember the nature of the qualifications to say that there were reported results, but the ability to actually see the evidence that will lead to the reported result is the matter of the qualification.
Indeed, and that's a question for John. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Just with regards to being able to have a possibly more accepting, there are 2 ways of approaching this. Or is there no leeway within your observation and measuring?
Yeah, so I mean, Kelly can allude to a bit, but I mean, my understanding is that the audit team of Wellington Water is working with Wellington Water on a way forward, to be able to resolve this issue. They do have the systems and capability to resolve the issue quite quickly. So I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah, if I can add. So the measures that we are qualifying are around the DIA mandatory measures. And with those measures comes quite strict definitions and guidance issued by DIA. So when we do our testing, we're considering those definitions and whether councils and Wellington Water are complying with those when they are reporting. So that was where we found an issue that the way the information's recorded and reported isn't all necessarily within those definitions and guidelines which are prescribed by DIA. So because of that, there isn't really leeway. We still have a materiality threshold we can use, but we should be looking for those guidelines and definitions.
So there's no difference in the audit approach we would use to audit Wellington Water's reporting on those measures versus any other council. What we require in terms of evidence and how they've interpreted the guidelines and what they're reporting against each of those measures is standard for across all councils.
Right.
John, you might like to comment. We advised audit and risk on the range of issues that might come up, and you raised the issue of materiality. One of the issues at the time was the response, the number of calls going through to the Palmerston North call centre, and I understand, because it's not referenced here, the assumption is that that's not a material issue for us as a council. That's correct? Yeah, so of the range of issues according to water, there was one which you decided not to qualify because of materiality threshold. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor West.
With regards to the Wellington Water statements, we're not the only council that have had those statements, is that correct? So it's actually applied to a couple of, yeah.
Right, in this one, yeah, I think all the shareholding councils where the affected measures have been assessed as material have the same inclusion in their opinion for this year. So for all the councils that Audit New Zealand has audited, they've got a similar looking qualification. There might be some more measures. So for some of the other measures, there's other issues across other measures which either South Wairarapa had its own system for, like the water losses. So we were satisfied with the reporting against the percentage of water loss. But for other councils where Wellington Water did that, they followed a different methodology. So there might be other measures affected, but all the shareholding councils have been infected one way or another.
I think I acknowledge the fact that we're not the only council to have that commentary with regards to Wellington Water.
That's right.
Upper Hutt, Lower Hutt, Wellington have also had those commentary inserted into their annual plan. So it's not as if it's just picking on South Y.
No, all the shareholding councils are affected.
Right. Any other councillors, any other questions?
No, but we had a brief on it yesterday that satisfied mine.
Yeah. And this, thank you very much, John, for your comments. If I can just mention as well with regards to the annual report that with COVID, it has been a very disruptive environment for the council to be working on, and I must thank the staff for the time they've spent in being able to compile the annual report to the level that they have, and just commend them for the work they've done. Thank you very much. Yeah. So we have the tabled 2019-20 annual report and the summary annual report. We have the summary.
You don't need to comment something.
So we have the tabled annual report available through our electronic agenda. I assume councillors that you will read that report. And so we will move on to the recommendations, which we will do separately. So do we have a mover to adopt the 2019-20 annual report? Councillor Hay, seconded Councillor Ems. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against? Motion is carried. Also, do we have a mover? I will move to delegate to the Mayor and the Chief Executive to correct minor grammatical and other errors. Do we have a second? Councillor Hay. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. And then finally, to delegate to the Mayor and the Chief Executive authority to sign these reports. Do we have a mover? Gibson. Thank you. Second, Councillor Ems. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against? Thank you. The motion is B1 done.
No, thanks, John. Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Thank you. Cheers.
So now we have agenda item B2, which is the externally funded projects approval to proceed. So I think we all know about the PGF funding. So we do have a mover to receive the report. Thank you, Councillor Colenso, seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against? The motion is carried. So, Harry or Ewan, yes. Do you have anything to add to this report? No. So we're all aware of what it entails. Councillors, do you have any questions?
So just thinking about the risk of the various projects, I'm probably more familiar with the bridge project in Greytown and the financials around that, but just thinking about the Marae and the scope of works, how closely will you be monitoring it, and on what date and how regular will that be? And is there the possibility to halt the project if it looks like it's going wildly over budget?
Well, I'll start with the bridge.
Yeah.
You can't build about the bridge. That is your risk. So you must complete the whole thing. So we just want to make sure before we sign up the contract, you're aware things sometimes change. So that the budget that Rick Carston did for the bridge included contingency and it included project management. Until you go to tender, you don't actually know what you're going to end up with the boxes in the budget estimate. So we won't have that certainty until we go to tender. But best certainty is to make sure you do the procurement, all those types of things. So this is I'm not trying to trivialise this, but it's just important to put on the public record. There's always a risk for these things. And we just want to make sure before I sign the contract that you are aware that there may be a risk and it may not play out, but they could. So that's the key one. However, in Marae, there is a degree of being able to alter the scope of the work as required. So we can control it with the number of elements as well in the project itself. But the big chunk of it is sprinkler systems and those types of things.
Yeah, and just to add that, in terms of the Marae works, they are fixed price quotes. We have had 3 quotes for the sprinkler system itself. It's not been properly scoped and compared to each other, and they are, as I say, fixed price quotes. The same work we've paid the best work.
And is there a time frame on the quotes, so that obviously that's the normal case, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So once the delegated authority sign these contracts, we'll enter into those contracts as well. And the works are currently scheduled to be finished by June 2021.
And I think the second part of that question for me is what is the extent of council's involvement in the monitoring of the project as it proceeds?
Yeah, absolutely. So our oversight will be through both myself and Bryce. We both had engagement with the Marae, and I've also had discussions with MB and the contractors as well that are doing the work. Most of the work within the Marae is with a single builder who's doing all that work. And yeah, our oversight will be in regular catch-ups. As part of the agreement, we'll also be required to do milestone updates back to MB as well. And so we'll be having regular engagement with the Marae.
And thank you for that.
Yes, Councillor, please.
Following on from Councillor Hayes' questions, are we going to put into the long-term plan some contingency funds in case we need them for this project?
At the moment, I've got $100,000 contingency in the affordable bridge. But nothing for the Marae.
Sorry, could you say nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing for the Marae.
We're confident it's more containable space.
But I thought the report said that was the end of the money. There is no more money
From the PGF.
from the PGF.
Yeah. So that's what we're saying, is if it overruns, we have to pay.
And it's better to put the contingency there and not need it than it is to be stuck in halfway through an annual plan with no money to complete the project. So I mean, it's a robust, prudent way of approaching it if the expectations won't be. I mean, if there are any doubts prior to the first project even started, then we would probably know that by then.
Once we're
Couple of things. I know the council has supported in principle the bridge, but at no stage did the Trails Action Group come to us with a request to underwrite anything. And I feel that this has now been lumped upon the council and the risk is entirely ours, and nobody can quantify the risk. So given the infrastructure projects that we've had across the country have in some cases been 100% out, and I'm not suggesting that this would be, but worst case, that's probably our risk. And there's been no work done from the Wairarapa Trails Action Group to seek council underwrite on this. And I think that's a big failing on their part. And to come to us with an effective fait accompli that Carterton Council has imposed upon us places our council at risk. And the ratepayers have had no chance to oversee this at all. So I am concerned about this.
In response, I am concerned about it. I think it's a massive benefit and financial benefit for the South Wairarapa, a gift from God, so to speak.
Not arguing that. Not arguing
Yeah,
that.
that's fine. However, I think we are prudently accommodating for the potential overrun, and the project won't go away without certain contractual quantifiable amounts prior to even starting. So I think our risk is limited, but I am very pleased that the officers have brought this to our attention, so we're not unaware of it.
So, sorry, could I just finish that, sorry, Lee? So, you know, the 1.36 million, what is it, Harry, you've been in this space before, so this hasn't gone out to tender, is that a fair, is $100,000 a fair amount?
I do, yeah, I do. Again, you just never know until the tender prices come in, in terms of suspension. That's equivalent essentially to the existing structure. The structural elements of it are already part built. So, you know, so the risk is actually low. Right?
At what stage do we have the right to say, stop, we're not going to start this?
So once we get the actual tender.
So if the tender comes in and it's more than $100,000 over, we can say, no, we're not going to do it.
If it's 100,000 over, we don't have to accept it. No. Yeah. But
So
also,
any time by your own motion, you can make a decision not to, but that means you also forgoing the PG application.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Anytime. And when you need to build a bridge, it's at all our cost.
and probably germane to this is the initial grant was $1 million. It was reviewed by the PGF and said, no, you need 1.3. So they raised the quantum of the award to make sure that it was satisfactory. So that actually allows us.
I do think it's a little bit rich, and I completely accept the gift of God, as it were, but for a community organisation to go out and do this and not come to us, and Carterton Council as well, and not come to us and say, well, by the way, you're going to have to underwrite this, is not particularly smart and not particularly good.
No, in fairness, so there's a couple of things just to recognise some context. One is making this application to the PGF, Carterton traded off some local, the town centre. So they sat, and I think this is local government at its best, where it actually says, for the wider interest of South Wairarapa, an investment in this, in the Five Towers Trust is better for the region. And they traded off a local interest to do that. So, you know, we don't have an opinion, but that's my view. Is this local government at its best when it actually does do that. Carterton are confident in the cost. They explained it to us. I was confident at the time that there was the kind of margin that would be right for that to do. We were approached and asked. They weren't told whether who should be the lead council for this. And the obvious answer is we will own the asset. This council will own the asset. We want to manage the risk, because the main risk is not the cost. The risk is in the engineering. You know, that's your biggest liability if this isn't built correctly. It's not the cost. It's the impact, the safety of people using the bridge. And I think it's fit and proper that we own. We'll be on our asset register. We have control. So that's only balance like we're going to do that. So. Yes, Carterton told us after the application was made, but my personal view is that that's a very, this is local government at its best when people are willing to invest in another council that's a greater good. So there's different views on each side of it.
Yeah, we are, as part of the 1.36 million, we are also receiving funding for oversight the project management. So we will be intimately and paying.
That's on above that.
That's above that.
It's included. So the bid was for the estimate of construction costs, some contingency, and the project management. for us
Oh,
to see
see,
that,
yep.
it's not to the trust.
So we will be
So
involved.
we've actually got a resource to use for staff to provide time to do the oversight. And that was built into the capacity.
And what was the level of contingency accounted for the 1.36?
20%.
So effectively, we've got a, with the extra, we've got in the long term plan, we've got about 30% contingency. That's more what I wanted
That's
to know.
fine.
Yeah.
So there's already a contingency there, and we're adding an even worse one for
Discuss that in the workshop, but we have got quite a bit in there for trails and maintenance.
And equally, as it becomes an asset of council, then we have to start depreciating to actually support renewal, all that type of thing as well.
If I could just make a comment that very senior global engineers have been working on it and have been involved in multinational business all around the world. And they've also had quite, I believe, as their initial application for scoping it out, that they had to do quite fine-tuned financials around the costing. And the company that they're proposing to do the job, construct it, have been involved in these sort of things on many occasions. So they're very experienced. So that may give some certainty or confidence.
I think, with regards to what Alistair has been talking about, is the fact that it would be nice if we had them here and if they actually told us what they had planned.
They were here. They were here last week.
Yes, they were, but at no stage did they say, we want you to underwrite this. Not once have they.
There's never any intention today. So we're putting this up just simply to say that if things go wrong, then the buck stops here. Right? And that's a different thing about approaching us to underwrite it. So this is just prudent advice to council.
Yep.
You know, if something goes wrong. But remember, this is not a complex engineering build. You know, it's a clip onto a railway bridge. So the substantive structure's there. So that's the nature of the clip on. You know, and it's the way that you actually manage the on and off those types of things. So from a structural point of view and from an engineering point of view, this is not a complex project. So you know, usually for scope adjustments, like we do projects, it's things like you go out and do your geotech. You know, flat stuff, and you find you've got a wet, boggy piece of ground, you have to dig it all up to put the structure. You know, so scope usually falls into that. So, you know, the risk is low, but you need to be advised that there is always a risk.
Councillor Queensland.
We should probably perhaps ask the Five Trails Trust to give us an update in the latest drawings for the clip-on.
And I think during the building of it, because I think it's a 5-month build.
And then we can maybe have a site visit over to it once they start and things like that, so that we're up to date with where they are.
Cool. I mean, not only that, but we could get that from council officers, given that we are project managers and are paid to do so. So councillor Chipson.
I was just going to add to what Harry said. The railways have done their engineering inspection on the bridge, and they've given it the all clear in terms of having this clip on there. So as Harry said, the only concern we got is the clip on.
I mean, there are minor things, like, I mean, there's things.
Oh,
like,
yeah, of course.
You know, should something fall off the train as it's driving past, or, you know, brake shoes, you know, there are things you do worry about.
Yeah.
So you need to work areas, you know, so that there will be design things, but in the level of complexity of bridges, you know, and believe me, train bridges, as opposed to a road bridge, are built to a much higher engineering specification because they're centre-loaded in a dispersed way. So, you know, fortunately, I'm not an engineer, but I have a lot of background.
Yes.
I suppose my only concern is that, and we're seeing it a lot with Wellington Water, is project overrun. And I just don't want to get into a situation where the project's.
I don't think we'll start.
A 30%.
Maybe more question for being about something to start. Yes. But hey, look, those concerns have been raised and will be hopefully passed on to the project engineer to give assurance back to council. Do we have any further discussion on that?
No.
Right. So do we have a mover to note the potential financial risk to the council on these projects and to delegate to the authority to the chief executive to enter into the contracts for the project? I've moved, thank you. Jimmy, seconded councillor Colenso. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, abstaining, motion is carried. Cool. Moving on to B3, increase in service for the Marlborough transfer station. We'll go report B3. Do we have a movement to receive the report? Thank you, councillor Colenso, seconded. Thank you, Alistair. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. So officers are seeking a decision to increase the service hours of the Marlborough transfer station for 2020 and moving forward. Not as much of 2020 left. Councillors, are there any questions for the officers on this report? Yes.
Yeah. A whole ton of questions, really. Why the emergency? And I know that you've stated that you want to get it in for many years, but is something broken?
No.
Nothing's broken? I'm a bit concerned that this hasn't gone through far because there are financial considerations that we need to be approving. I thought it would have been prudent to actually take it through the park committee first to have it further analysed. You've given us some costings, but I'm not sure how much money we're actually taking in from the site that may offset this cost. I don't know what the actual problem is with the congestion. Is it that the people are all coming all at the same time? Is it that the way that it's currently set out, that it's not amenable for mass people coming on site? And I think these issues could have been hashed out through either the assets and services or FAR. And typically, if we were going to do services, my understanding was that it had to go through the RTP, was my understanding, but maybe we can just go and raise stuff all the time, just as the council, I'm not sure.
Harry, like comment on the appearance of it.
I'd like to declare a conflict of interest.
As much as you live
I
close to it.
live pretty close to it. No. So this is simply, the problem is there's a very narrow place for people to be able to park off the road. So that when you have multiple people going in, you end up with people backing up onto the road itself. And which creates a turning and those types of things. So, which I've seen. But please, I don't raise this because of that. But it's essentially customer service. We have a whole lot of people in the community who have said it would really assist us to be able to space the time that we get things out. We work, we have different times that we do it. We definitely get a change between people who live here coming on Wednesdays, and we have the people who are out of town at different times. So it's a customer service proposition, no more, no less. And so feedback from the community has been very strong. They would like to see the house extended, as we've done here. There's minimal cost to council. There is minimal cost.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
So it doesn't trigger, and for that reason, it doesn't trigger an LTP. It's simply a decision. Up to you whether you listen to the community, and we're coming towards Christmas. If you wanted a halfway house, do a trial and see how that works over that period, but I don't think it makes any difference. I don't see the complexity personally.
Just for clarity,
No,
I agree with it.
Sorry. Did anyone else have, or you're okay?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I agree with the principle of the document in its entirety. It's just that these financial considerations that need to be taken into account.
Yeah.
So just thank you for that. In Greytown, there's a great deal of confusion because of the hours, because it changes according to the days. And I think this provides greater clarity, a greater level of service, and the potential for people from Greytown and Featherston to use the facility a bit more. So just thinking about the income that we currently receive, would you have any idea on the income we get currently from the tractors?
Not off the top of my head, I don't know.
And the other question is, so we review our charges annually, don't we? So there may be the potential to, when it's just 6 months, 15,000, that there may be the potential to review our charges next year.
For accommodation.
And just the unbudgeted 15,000 of this next 6 months, is that business as usual? Where's that money coming from?
Out of the fund, out of our amenities, out of the yearly budget.
Okay, we have budget for it, so it's not.
Yeah, it's not new money.
I mean, I think it's a great customer solution.
Oh, sorry,
Can I just say that Mungro's, we're the only, in the district, we're the only council that waives trailers. So we've only had a one-way bridge. So the town's all got bigger. You're quite correct, the times were shocking. And people turning up when we're shutting the gates and getting upset about it. So that's why we tried to standardise it across the, and with the towns being busy, we're getting queues of 10, 20 cars because you've only got on a Wednesday 2-hour window, and frustration was boiling. We got the old pay wave in there to hurry it up over the COVID period, which did help. But it's summer now, building is going off. We're seeing a lot of traffic.
And remember, this also is our rural. So people have to travel considerable distances to use this. The obvious question is the long hours, so getting service.
I think it came loud and clear during the last annual plan, the frustration with rural people with regards to opening hours and then tight travel time. Also, we have noticed, and I'm not sure if this, well, hopefully it'll have a flow effect of the increase in flight ticket. As a result, I'm hoping that this, well, I got out of this is if the greater availability to dump, the less chance of frustration of just throwing out of the trailer if it's closed.
Yep.
So,
Well, I think it makes sense to standardise the hours, absolutely. I would like to see this done as part of a wider review of our dumps, particularly when we look at Greytown, which is a recycling place only. Technology's moved on from having a manned recycling place. We can do it in a much better, more efficient, less cost-effective way, I would suggest. And maybe the way we do that may well offset the cost of doing this. But certainly, I'd like to see a review of how we operate our waste, and also in line with our new bylaw that's coming in as well, and the charges and so on. So there's a lot of work to do in this space, but certainly right through the Christmas period, Bryce, I support what you're asking, but we need to look at this not as a town by town, but as a district wide.
within the LTP, do we have a review of transfer stations and rubbish in general?
Yeah, we do have some.
Yeah, we are looking at doing when we come back next year.
Yep.
There's some changes that we'll
Through you, Worship, I think this is something that people have been asking for a long time.
Yep.
It would also alleviate those people who have been out at the coast and coming back through town for them to be able to leave their rubbish rather than filling up all the rubbish things at the coast. And they've also been asking for this and to bring it in on the 1st of January while the holiday makers are still around is
And there's a
really
lot
great.
greater cost to council from having to clear rubbish bins out of the coast.
Absolutely, and one of my other questions was about the last 6 months as to the funding of this extra cost, but that's already been answered. But a big tip for doing this now and putting.
So are you happy for this to just go through as the resolution, or would you like it to be up until the end of the year, subject to a review? No?
Continue, I think it's in place.
I think it's loud and clear out there.
Yep.
But could we perhaps just, so that the officers know that whilst we're giving this the tick, we do want a review of how we're doing our rubbish, because with our new bylaw that's going to come in with.
I think
Yeah, I think we've heard from Bryce.
But earlier rather than later.
Until we take that into TP, so we'll have that discussion.
Councillor West.
So I suppose, I agree with this in principle. It's a great idea to extend hours. I'm not against the concept or the idea. What I am against is that we're setting a precedent that at any stage, any time, we can review our services and how much they cost. Is that the right process? No, we're just about to increase our cost for this. So what's stopping the council from coming back next term and saying, oh, we want to change this? Can you-
Nothing.
However, I mean, it's just one member of the council. We've heard that it's within the current existing budget. We have already heard from the people that there's the requirement for this or a desire for this, and there are the side benefits. So as the council, the highest committee within council, and coming up to a Christmas period, I have no problem with this period of funds.
I do, because our policies that we should be aligning ourselves to, are we just laying waste to that? Are we laying waste to the policies that we have?
If you as a
With regards to
council,
setting our service fees and setting how much money
we're not setting the cost to dump rubbish.
no, but we are increasing our budget.
As a result of increasing our services in line with customer expectations, which is something that we do all the time with the libraries.
When's the last time that we improved the library?
But the libraries are
We
constantly.
did that through LGP.
So Brenda has a point, but there's, it's like everything, you have a general rule and there's always a bit of an exception, there should always be an exception. Because the corollary to this is that we could, if we had to go through our normal process, we'd be having to wait until the next Assets and Services Committee next year. To actually pass this, to bring this to council, and we would not have the January. So the thing that's driving it is to make sure that we get this in place by 1 June. And so that's the reason for the exception. But Brenda's right, we should be doing this in a measured way. But the point is that it comes time to just be practical, because there are times when we have to make a decision. And so we've looked at it.
We've got to be.
Can I just clarify the qualification assessment is a material increase in limit service,
Yeah.
which would require a home to the OGP, it's not.
Yes.
It's quite minor.
And also, you would expect an increased use, which would offset some of the costs with increased revenue. We're just not sure what that looks like.
And that's why I felt it was really important to go through Assets and Services, so we can actually be aware of how much further income
And
could
unfortunately,
potentially
We
come from.
probably would if we.
And timing is against us. So that's.
But unfortunately, in saying that, can we just amend this to say, for a couple of months, we have it as a trial period?
No.
And then firm up the ideas.
Unnecessary bureaucratic. Look, you've made the point, that's cool, we've listened. Councillors, are there any other viewpoints or?
I totally agree with it. It's been something that the people of Marlborough and the coastal areas have been asking for a long time. We've got the opportunity to do it. I'm not concerned about the budget because, as we've had explained to us, the money is there for this year. And I think, we're increasing the services to the people and they need it.
I think also the benefit is for people outside of Marlborough, from Featherston.
Oh, absolutely.
And rural. Yeah. Because the reality is if it's only 5 minutes away versus half an hour away, you've got a lot more leeway to keep your rubbish done. So do we, any further comments before we take this to a vote? So we now would like someone to move to improve the increase in service of the Marlborough transfer station. Do we have a mover? Councillor, and Councillor Hayes, second. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against?
No.
Any abstaining?
Please, no.
We have, as soon as you said it, was no.
So I'm feeling against or
Against. The motion is carried. Any general business raised? If not, then I think, thank you all very much, and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you. Merry Christmas to everyone.
Thank you.
How long before we?
What about New Year? I'm not thinking that far. Our next meeting is.
Everyone is here.
This is 3:30, but we can bring that forward if you wanted to. So we have